So good afternoon, Year 10 and 12. Welcome to the afternoon sessions, and this particular session is to do with law. So if you're not in the right place, just stay sat down and enjoy what is going to be a riveting discussion. On my panel today, I have got Abby Keach. Abby Keach is not only a parent, but she is also the owner and MD of Oakwood Solicitors. We have also got Pankaj Madan, who is a barrister, and we're very grateful that he managed to come along and speak to you today last minute, so thank you very much. And on my far left is, of course, Asma Ali, who is a trainee solicitor. So, without further ado, let's get going. Firstly, for Abby, tell us about the area you work in and your role.
So I went off and I did 3 sciences at A-level. So I decided I was going to be the virologist of the world and save everybody. And I went to Newcastle University. So I did 3 years then and came out and did 2 years research, and then realised that being paid £8,000 a year for doing research was not going to be the best thing for me, and so I went and did lots of temping, and it was a really good way of getting a lot of experience and trying to decide what I really did want to do, because I think when you're your age it's quite hard. You're 15 or 16 or 17 and suddenly you've got to plan your entire future, and it can be incredibly difficult. So I did lots of temping, and I eventually went to work for a law firm doing their admin. And the gentleman there said, right, I'd like you to do a law conversion course and train to be a solicitor. So I went down a different route, maybe the traditional route, and I did the graduate diploma of law, which was to do the conversion, which gives you the effect of the law degree, which was 2 years part-time whilst working. And then I converted to do the legal practitioner's course, which is a 2-year course again for the LPC, which you can do in a year. And then after that, I did the training contract. So it's a lot of steps along the way to become a solicitor. It's not the easiest thing that you just go do your law degree, you come out and you earn £5 billion. It's just not as easy as it is. And I think I did the training contract. And if you've been working in practice with a training contract, you often get time to count. So you can cut it down from 2 years to 18 months, which is what I did. And I think I qualified in 2010. I became a director, I became a solicitor, and I had a baby all the same month. So don't do what I did. It's ridiculous, and it's hard work, but it is quite rewarding, and you know, that's the route I've gone down. So then when I did that, I went into personal injury, and that was my area of law that I did. And for those of you that probably don't know what personal injury is, it's we're the road ambulance chasers. That's what our nickname used to be. And we do the road traffic accidents, people who do slips and trips at work, clinical negligence, so when you want to sue the doctors because they've chopped off the wrong leg, that kind of thing. So I did that for quite a lot of years, and I had another baby. He's in year 5, and then I was at home with baby number 3, and my owner said to me, would you like to take over the firm? And I said, okay, I'll leave the 2-week-old baby at home, and she's in year 3, and came back to work, and basically over the next 6 months I then worked out how to kick him out and then to take over. So I took over in 2015, having known nothing, literally nothing about finance, about profit, about how to deal with staff, about people coming in saying, oh, I've got this, that, and the other wrong with me, and you're thinking, oh God, and I've got to clean the toilet, and now I've got to go home and feed a baby. So running a law firm can be very stressful, and eventually I bought him out, and then I've owned the firm since 2015. So.
That's an incredible pathway to where you are today.
Run through my entire life there.
Sounds very exhausting at times.
Don't do what I did. Go and get somebody else and do it that way.
Asma, how does that compare to your journey from school to where you are now?
So I think with me, I always knew I wanted to be in the justice system. So when I was at you guys' age, I didn't know what I wanted to do, if I'm entirely honest. So for that reason, I decided to do a course at university, which was a combined course with law and criminology. It was then, I believe, in my second year that I decided, well, actually, I don't really want to do the criminology side of things. I can probably see myself in law just with more experience in like debate and like moots and stories that we'd heard from like lecturers and things. So I went on to pursue the law courses and subjects in my final year, and then straight after I graduated, back in 2014, I did the LPC, which is a legal practice course. I did that for 2 years, and then I came to Abbey's firm in 2016 as a legal assistant, and since then I've been here and I've worked my way up from a legal assistant to a paralegal to now a trainee solicitor.
Wow, again, a really interesting backstory there. Just very briefly, you mentioned something called mooting. I know, looking at the audience, there are quite a few who do debating. Could you talk a bit about mooting and what that is?
It's basically, it's like the advocacy setting side of things. So, I mean, we don't really, as solicitors, go into courtrooms ourselves, but there are sort of, with mooting, it's more of how are you persuading and putting your point across. So you might be a claimant or a defendant. And I think with that, it's just more of experience. And the more you do it, I say this, the more you do it, the more you do get better at it. So I think for those that do want to go and do your own advocacy in the near future, keep practicing and keep going.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Would you recommend doing a law degree?
I would recommend doing a law degree, but I would also say compared to like my time back in 2010 when I was doing, when I was in school, we didn't have a lot of options, but now you've got a lot of apprenticeships, you've got different apprenticeships. So you can do a solicitor's apprenticeship, and at the end of the 6-year course, you can become a solicitor. But with university, again, if you want to do that, I would say go and fight your goal and, you know, live your dream, because that's exactly what I did.
And it's interesting you mentioned that there are different routes that you can take to get into law. We'll come back to that in a moment. I think, Pankaj, you're a barrister.
Yes.
How is that different to being a solicitor?
Well, principally, we're a referral profession. So a solicitor, our work generally comes from solicitors. Though in recent time, we also do direct professional access work. Some of us do. I don't personally. But some barristers see members of the public directly and help them with their legal problems. But by and large, most of us get referred cases from our instructing solicitor, somebody like Abbey. So I suppose it's a little bit like your GP. You might go see your GP and they might refer you to a consultant. But solicitors themselves are very specialist these days as well. Principally, the difference is we go to court perhaps more often and do final trials more often. That said, in my area, I actually don't do that many final trials because we settle them. So the distinction between the two professions has blurred in recent times. But principally, barristers are specialists in advocacy, tend to specialise in particular areas. I'm very narrow. I not only do personal injury, but I've ended up specialising in people who have catastrophic or subtle traumatic brain injury. So I really am quite specialist in my particular field. So I get cases from all over the country referred to me from various solicitors all over, yeah, both claimant and defendant.
That is so niche that, you know, that's not something that we would, well, certainly not what I would expect in terms of a barrister. In my head, I guess I've got this vision of what you see in courtroom dramas. Is it like that, though?
It can be. There can be a lot of drama if you want there to be.
Wonderful. Well, opening to anyone from the panel, really. There are obviously these different routes that you can go down to become either a solicitor or a barrister. Obviously, you've got the kind of doing a law degree, then you've got the doing whatever degree you like, and then converting at the end. Which one's more popular? Which one do you think prospective employers look at and go, wow, that's amazing, I like that?
Well, I mean, I made a list of all the ones and all the routes that you can go down, and there is a list now. And in the traditional route, you used to be able to do your normal degree. You go 3 years, get very drunk, throw up a lot, enjoy life, and then you go and become an adult, and that would be the traditional route that a lot of people would do. Northumbria is a brilliant university because they do the LPC within it. You can go to California. I'd heard that California, do they do BVC in New York as well? You know, there are other routes that you can go down, and they're definitely worth looking at. There are also new routes that they've introduced in the last couple of years. So if you've not got a lot of money, or you don't want to come out of university having to pay $15,000 for the LPC, which is, you told me earlier, it's a very expensive course to go and do nowadays. What you can do is you can actually apply for various law firms to go in and become a paralegal. And the paralegal is just a 2-year course. You come out of it, you've got a qualification, happy days, you've been working, you've got some money, and you don't need to do a law degree for that. There's also the solicitor apprenticeship, which is 6 years. So you don't go to university, you start when you're 18, you carry on the way through. Again, you're earning money, you're getting knowledge, you're working in a law firm that you've been there, you've got, you know, the usually guaranteed work, you're going to be there and they're going to pay you. You can work your way through and you become a solicitor at the end, and you've also got none of that debt, which even now I talk to 30, 40-year-olds and they've still got debt that they're paying off the student loans, and it can be an awful lot. There are other ways. You can do a SILEX course, which is another route. Again, you might come out with you might have screwed up your A-levels, whatever's happened. You can go down through there as long as you've got GCSEs. There's also the SQE, so you can do the law. You need to go and do the research on this because it is quite a detailed thing. But the SQE is one where it takes 15 months. That's replacing the LPC in the years to come. And then there's the old-fashioned LPC, which is still in force. So there's different ways to get to the end. It's whether you want the money, you want to spend the money, you want to do it very quickly, whether you're happy just to wait and get that knowledge. But I really would do your research, which is going to be right for you, because university isn't always right for everybody. It's sometimes, you know, you might not want to move away from home, your situation changes, whatever it may be. And I think that's a good route to really look into and research.
Yeah. That's fantastic advice, because, you know, so often it's seen that, oh, I've done my A-levels, the next step must be university, but actually contextually sometimes that can be disadvantageous for whoever you are and whatever you're wanting to do. So you've got all these different routes that you can do law, and you've chosen your specific route. How do I know what is going to be the best area of law for me?
The short answer is I'd be surprised if you knew straight away. And your area of law often finds you, you know, and it's got to fit with your personality. I've ended up looking after helping people with traumatic brain injury, people who at their lowest ebb quite often will lack capacity. That means that they cannot make decisions for themselves because they're so badly injured. And they will have been people just like you, travelling perhaps in a car, expecting to have a normal life, and all of a sudden their life has been turned upside down by a very severe road traffic accident. Or it might be they were crossing the road and a car has struck them. So it must fit with your personality. You will not know straight away what sort of area of law you want to do. It may be, I mean, I started out quite broad. I did everything. And I also sit part-time as a judge, where I still sit in a very wide area of law in the county court and the high court. But it fits with your personality. It will find you. And I think at this stage, you wouldn't expect to know what area you want to do. But it may be you have a passion for doing crime and that you stick with that. Or it may be you want to do common law or commercial, or it may be, you know, chancery and estates and something very esoteric and very legally based. Do you like working with people? Are you based in, do you like doing commercial law, business? Some people specialise in very specialist areas such as taxation or human rights. So there's all sorts of areas. I sit on the pupillage committee at one of my chambers, Exchange, which is, we're based in Leeds, Manchester and Liverpool. We're a set of about 250 barristers, one of the largest in the country. We've organised pupillage into what we call a pupillage academy. So pupillage is like your training contract for the bar. It's your apprenticeship and it lasts just 1 year. In the first 6 months, you'll be just learning. And in the second 6 months, you'll be learning and earning. You will be doing your own cases just after 6 months, and it'd be just you in court doing that case without any help. So you get thrown in at the deep end, but after a lot of training, and you will be qualified to do it. Now, in the Pupillage Academy, we sort pupils into various categories. So we invite applications in either criminal, common law, chancery commercial, or what we call business, and family. And we divide pupils into those areas. So by that stage, 5 years from now, or not from now, but from when you leave school, you would probably be expected to broadly know which area you want to go in. And even then, we get people who apply for family, find that it's not for them, and then switch to business, or vice versa, or somebody who wants to do crime may decide crime's not for them. So it's very fluid, and you don't have to decide it now. But quite something which often attracts candidates is criminal law, because it's on the TV all the time. Personally, I quite liked watching Rumpole or Crown Court at 1 in those days, and that's what got me into wanting to do law. And I'm very glad I started out doing jury trials, and started out prosecuting in the magistrates' court, then doing jury trials, and eventually specialising in personal injury, and then narrowing to what I do now, which is very niche.
And have you always been based in the north?
Well, yes, I was offered pupillage both in London and Leeds, and I actually made a choice to come back to Leeds, which I'm glad I did. I think you get a very good grounding, plus they take you on with a view to keeping you, rather than a view to using you as labour for a year, and then perhaps not keeping you on. The set I was offered pupillage at, 1 Crown Office Row, Robert Seabrook QC's set at that time. I know they took on 3 pupils that year. I could have been one of them, but I know that year they didn't keep any of those 3. Whereas I actually chose to come back to Leeds. I went to what was called 10 Park Square, then became Zenith Chambers. And my pupil master was a chap called Julian Goose, and now Mr. Justice Goose, he's a High Court judge. And he gave me a really good grounding and a good training. So I'm very glad I did. But then eventually I ended up as a barrister in London as well. So I've got my set in the north, and I actually have my set in London. I'm a full tenant at both. So I do about half my work in London, about half my work in the north, all over the rest of the country. And it's up to my solicitors which chambers they want to instruct me through. So I don't really have to worry about it. And I think it's probably, and you end up getting the best of both worlds. So it's worked out quite well.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. And what amazing kind of route, again, thinking about the routes into where you've ended up. You know, it's fascinating to always hear people's backstories. Asma, turning to you for a moment now. So obviously, you know, you're in your more formative stages of the law. How competitive was it for you to get a training contract?
I believe when I came to the firm, and obviously I decided that I wanted to sort of learn on the job, because there's a lot that I felt you needed to sort of be in the setting. Even when doing the LPC, that you'd actually learn whilst you're there, you're doing it yourself. So luckily for me, my firm, so Abiola, did internal contract applications. So even then, I mean, I would say it's competitive in whether you're doing them internally at a firm that you're working in, doing a paralegal or a legal assistant job, or even applying for firms across the UK. It is very competitive. But the one thing I can say to everybody is, when you are going to apply, don't just think, oh, it is competitive, give it your shot. Because ultimately it's you and it's your personal journey. You've got to let the employers and the firms that you're applying to know who you are and why you stand out from the crowd and what you can potentially bring to the table. So it will always be competitive and difficult, but I wouldn't let that put anybody down or put you off in going down and pursuing a career in law.
And just thinking about the skills that you were mentioning, what do you think makes a great trainee? What skills do you think they need?
For me, I believe my main skills would be time management. You've got to prioritise your time. You've got to prioritise your tasks. You've also got to be keen and willing to learn things and be a better version of who and what you were yesterday. So I prefer learning from my mistakes or learning from trial and error and moving forward. And amongst anything else, I believe communication's also very key. You've got to be able to voice and convey things in how you work and why you work a certain way, just to get the results and the outcomes that you get. And also just, for me, team player. Be a part of a team and do what's best for you, but also as your team, because ultimately that's who you're spending your hours on end with.
And is it really hours on end in those first few years? Obvious question.
Depends on how you want to do it. You can either stick to your 9 to 5, or if you want to just be proactive and do whatever you've got to do, then yes. But it's your personal journey. Your time, your journey, you make it count.
Fabulous, thank you. Abby, thinking about prospective trainees coming to you, what would you be looking for in terms of key skills?
My advice to all of you is to go and get work experience. I think it ties in with what Prakash was saying, that the best thing that you can do before you learn which area you want to go into is to do work experience. The easiest thing is to just go and do it, especially if a lot of you are 15, 16, aren't you? And then you've got the older ones. And even if you take a week of your summer holidays and apply to a local firm that does family, because you're interested in family, or a week in a criminal law firm, or a personal injury, or one that does lots of it, it's really, really worth going off to see, A, what it's like to be in an office environment. I know you all work beyond 9 to 5, a lot of you, and I drop my kids off at 7:45 in that car park, I pick them up at 6. They get the full day's work, they know what it's like. But I think it's knowing how to deal with the admin, how to deal with accounts, how to deal with all those other kind of people, and knowing what a law firm wants from you. So work experience to me is the best thing, and to have that then on your CV is absolutely fabulous. A lot of you, at the CVs that we had during COVID, they had nothing on them. Nobody had done anything because they're obviously sat at home. And the amount of people that work in Subway get through that door is unbelievable. But work out where you want to work. You know, there are so many law firms in Leeds. We are one of the powerhouses of the north is Leeds as a city. There's Manchester and everything else. But we have a lot of little firms. We have a lot of big firms. Some will take on work experience, some won't. But even if you can just give a week, send your CV in, a beautiful headed covering letter explaining who you are, what you do, what experience that you may have that you bring to the table is the way forward. We've had a few from the grammar school, and they were absolutely unbelievable. We had Anna, who was just fantastic. She ended up staying till about 6 o'clock at night. They gave her stuff. She wanted to go home with the work. She was unbelievable. She was really good. And I'm more than happy to take anybody on in this room if you ever want to come and do some work experience. Just email, say you've been here today, and you're more than welcome to have a week. I do a whole variety of different areas in my law firm, so you can employ from employment to personal injury to conveyancing, whatever it may be. But it also turns you off, and you end up thinking, oh my God, I could not do that. That is just awful. That's not my area of law. We had a grammar school boy a couple of weeks ago whose parents, one's a midwife and one's a senior orthopaedic. Came in, did clinical negligence work. His parents were furious. He's like, I want to sue the NHS. This is what I want to do now. I want to sue people like my parents. So we converted him because he was coming in to do employment and he changed. So we've sent him off a different path. But when you're this age, it's really difficult to know what you want to do, and without getting lots and lots of weeks experience in different areas, and highly, highly recommend it. And always, always bring biscuits. And a thank you card, because that gets you back. But out of the people that I've done for work experience, I think we've taken on 7 that have now got jobs with us. There's summer internships for a lot of places where you do like over 6 weeks. You might come in 1 day a week. And they seem to be coming through. But it pushes you forward with the training contract as well. So if you come back and say, do you know what, I did work experience with you. Oh, did you? Right. Do you know what? You might be up there with a training contract. And it does work with an awful lot of law firms in Leeds. But there's a lot that don't take work experience. So I would really, really recommend you get that. Get your CVs out there from this age onwards, and go and learn that. I think it's invaluable. And don't forget biscuits.
Yeah, biscuits, always appreciated.
Every time.
Sometimes people have this perception that law is a lot of who you know, and that kind of those external contacts and family links and so on. It's lovely to hear you say, Abby, that you can just send an email. But networking's obviously quite a big thing. When you first started, was networking seen as this big kind of, oh no, I don't really like doing that, I'm not really confident? Or is that something that maybe law students are naturally a bit more confident and therefore that's an area that they're quite excited by? Is networking as glamorous as it appears?
No.
Networking can be hard work, but you have got the great advantage nowadays of something that we didn't have, which is sites such as LinkedIn and Twitter. And you can research people and develop your relationships well in advance of actually having a career. So I often get law students linking in with me or people like that. And
GSAL connections.
GSAL connections, yeah, absolutely. And you can learn so much about these connections and people who might be interviewing you because everyone has websites and so on and so forth. So that makes networking much easier. Use your connections through the grammar school. I was an old boy here, obviously 82 to 92. And at that point we had on the Board of Governors Brian Walsh, QC, who was of great assistance to me and gave me some advice when I had the choice to change universities. And I've still got the letter that he wrote me. It was a lovely letter. And so you have connections here. You're at a wonderful school and you have lots of connections, so do use them.
Yeah, absolutely. Those alumni connections are really, really powerful. And that's one of the advantages of somewhere like GSAL.
But can I just say as well, I mean, I knew nobody in the law. My parents were in medicine. They were first generation immigrants to this country in 1966. And they said, oh, we really ought to be doing medicine. And I said, no, I don't think so. So I branched out into the law and I was probably one of the first from that generation of post-immigrant generation to do it. And I'm glad I did.
Fabulous. Shall we open up to the floor? Yeah, absolutely. Any questions for the panel?
If you wanted to be a barrister, do you think it's more beneficial to start out doing a barrister training degree or solicitor?
You can do both. What you would do, the way you would start is you've got to first of all decide, are you going to go to university, are you going to do a degree? And that is by far the most common way of entering the professions these days. It used to be less common. You could perhaps go in without a degree. You can go through the paralegal route, but it will take you longer, obviously. A degree is a great advantage. You've first got to decide, do you want to do a degree in law or do you want to do another type of degree? My own view is you should do what you enjoy. And if you enjoy it, then you'll probably excel at it. And if you excel at it, you will demonstrate your intellect. And that's one of the qualities that we're looking for at the bar, intellect. And when I interview, and I've just done a sift of 240 CVs, we got them down to 75, I think, by the time we did them, I got them, and we interviewed 14 of those. And then of those, only 3 go through to the second round interview.
So it's incredibly competitive.
It's incredibly competitive. So 240, that's just for common law. We whittle it down to 75. We then sift down to 14 and then through to first interview and then second interviews. And so in terms of the degree and your route, to answer your question, I think it doesn't really matter whether you do a law degree or a non-law degree, but just bear in mind if you do a non-law degree, it is going to take you an extra year to qualify. But on the other hand, doing what you enjoy and a degree which it might be easier to get into that degree, for example, rather than law at the university of your choice. So it doesn't really matter. It does take you an extra year. There's probably an extra cost to it if you're doing a non-law degree. I personally chose to do a law degree, and I'm glad I did because it gave me, I think, a more thorough grounding in the way that one can think about the law, which I thought was very useful in my job, where one has to consider the law in great detail. And I think it gives you a discipline in terms of your logical thinking, which can be very useful later on. That said, there are incredibly good lawyers who didn't do a law degree, who have got just those same skills and may well have enjoyed themselves a bit more at university. So then when you've done your law degree or non-law degree, you've got to do, if you've done your non-law degree, you've got to do an extra step. And that's when you will do that extra step of doing a conversion course and the graduate diploma in law, or the PGDL or GDL. And then if you have done a law degree, you will go straight to the BPC, or the bar practice course, which is in several locations now. My year, 1996-7, was the last year where you had to do it in London at the Inns of Court School of Law. But now you have this wonderful choice of being able to do it at other locations through the BPP. The cost is around £15,000 for that year. And then after you've done whilst you are doing your BPC, your bar practice course, you will be applying for pupillage. Lots of people are disappointed. There are far fewer pupillage places than there are places at the BPC. So it's very much, the sift comes when you apply for pupillage. Now, these days, lots of people do other things before pupillage. It's very rare that we will take somebody straight from bar school. And that's the route that I went through. I think it is the numbers are so great and it's so competitive that is a very rare route. So we are interviewing people who have worked at law firms and done paralegaling, are doing advocacy through institutions such as there's an institution called LPC and others who they do advocacy. Even though they're not fully qualified, they can appear in the county court as long as they're supervised by a solicitor. And a lot of cases in the county court at that level are done by advocates who are still intending to qualify fully. But that's wonderful experience. And then some people work at maybe Citizens Advice Bureau and they gain skills through that sort of organisation, pro bono work, charities, and gradually build up their skills and their experience, and they will keep applying for pupillage until they get it. So resilience is a great quality to have if you're going to go down the bar route these days.
That was.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it was a fabulous answer. Thank you so much. And a fabulous question. Any other questions as well? Daisy?
At what stage should we start to look for work experience and what work experience actually?
That's a good question. Do you want?
Yeah, I mean, we have people from all sorts of schools. I think the worst one we had was he got told to do some filing and put everything in alphabetical order, so he did it by Mr, Mrs and Mrs. So we had mama. So don't do that. But I would advise that you do it probably from 16. So, you know, if you've got that year between, you finish your GCSE so early, I think it must be at least March by the time you finish at the moment. It seems to get earlier and earlier. That is the prime time to do it because a lot of other people won't have applied. So get your CVs out then. Sometimes we see people I want to do work experience when you're going to give me a date. Don't write that. Write a nice letter and you're more likely to get it. But, you know, put down the dates that you're available. If you've got holiday or whatever, it's better than I've got this week, which we're seeing from a lot of Allerton High and Allerton Grange are doing it at the moment. I've got this 1 week, which is when they've been told to do it. And you get 50 people wanting that 1 week. So the earlier the better, and as much as you can possibly manage.
15 is the age that you're allowed into court. So from that time on.
Okay. I mean, you asked what kind of things. Each firm will do different things with you. Some will get you to photocopy, I'll be honest. Some will see whether your tea-making skills are good. We put a lot of people in our clin neg department and our industrial disease with asthma. She's got quite a lot at the moment. And we get you to look through medical records. maybe do a research of that. Research is a great thing, maybe some things for the marketing, for the website. You may end up doing some admin, you may end up in the accounting department. They're all areas that will add to your knowledge of work experience, but do ask, because I think they use them as skivvies, so be warned, be warned.
Excellent advice. Oh, wow, lots of wonderful questions. There seems to be none from the sixth form area. Oh, go on then, Gwen.
Do you have any advice for preparing for the
Applying for what, sorry?
The LNET, this is a new thing that they now need to do. It's in line with the MCATs.
What the?
Yeah.
Go on, what's an LNAT?
Oh, I mean, I am
Is this
definitely
like an
not...
apprenticeship?
No, it's like a skills test, isn't it? Al will know.
Oh, really? Oh, I've not come across
I've
it.
not come across it either. It's new to
Is this
me.
a new thing for this year? Oh, I get the other end, not this end. So what was your question? So
Any advice?
Do you have any advice for preparing for the or just
So what kind of questions do you get with the LNAT then? Is it sort of an aptitude test of knowing...
Is it psychometric?
It's about verbal reasoning, aptitude test, so you can't be prepared for it. It's just
You?
reading, and it's not testing the law. It's not testing the law.
Give us an example of a question you might be asked. Have you looked at them?
Wow.
There'll be a text and you have to deduce meaning, or infer meaning, what they're trying to say, or they'll test your critical thinking skills. Describe two different arguments for and against.
Ah,
It's that kind of thing.
right. Well, the best thing that you can possibly do, it seems to me, to prepare for that,
Yeah, no, you carry on.
is debating. And just let's have a show of hands. How many of you here debate at school?
I'm on the sixth form, is it?
Yeah, more the sixth forms. At what age do you start debating?
Year 7. I
Right.
believe actually primary school do.
Okay, look, to test your skills as a lawyer and to develop them, and for the LNET test, I would have said debating is the best thing you could do. That's what I did at school. I ended up representing the school in the school's competition. And I just loved it. And if Nick Allen were here, Nick was one of the best debaters that the school has ever seen. And he was just incredibly good at it, and ended up as president of the Cambridge Union as well. And that ability to develop arguments, whether you actually believe in them or not, to develop logical thinking and develop your articulate skills of advocacy, debating, you've got it all in there. Now, mooting is slightly different. Mooting might come later. Mooting is the debate about a legal problem and about, you're given a question about the law and about arguing a particular case one way or another, normally at an appellate level, about whether the law should be X or whether the law should be Y. And you use cases to persuade. Whereas debating, obviously, is about any subject. And that will hone your skills so that when you come to do the LNET test, you will have developed your skills of logical thinking and analytical thinking, which is what they're testing. When we test for pupillage, when we are looking at pupillage applicants and for those trying to secure pupillage, we base our analysis or our form along the following key skills. Intellectual aptitude. Now, actually, most of the candidates score really highly on intellect. It's a given. They've all got good degrees, good A-levels, good GCSEs, and they tend to score quite well. Some of the best candidates we have are, have got master's degrees or even PhDs these days who are applying for pupillage. Where you go doesn't matter so much as the way that you are demonstrating these qualities. And we're looking for debating, we're looking for mooting, for people who've won prizes, who've done really well. And that impresses us. The next is communication skills, which are obviously really important. The next is analytical thinking. And then we're looking at other qualities, such as empathy, Can you deal with different types of people from other walks of life? Diversity is very important, and equality is very important to us these days. And when we take all these boxes and headings, we basically score you objectively, and those with the highest scores are the ones who go through. Now, so to answer your question, obviously everything you're doing at school is developing you as people, with your analytical thinking, your communication skills, your analysis. So I think school is preparing you for the LNET. I think debating would be the best thing.
Fabulous. Arthur, you've got a question?
What's your favourite type of law and why?
Favourite type of law? Well, actually, the favourite type of law that I do is the area that I do, which is catastrophic and serious personal injuries, because I think I'm helping people at they're often their lowest point in their lives, and it's people who have, through no fault of their own normally, ended up in a situation which they just couldn't have envisaged. Imagine, you're crossing the road, or you're in a car and you're struck head on at 70 miles an hour and you're left with catastrophic injuries. And I think that is the sort of category of person that I feel very comfortable in doing my best to help.
Must be very rewarding in many ways, but
It is.
also very emotional in
It
terms
is,
of the load.
Yeah, that's right.
Wonderful. I think we've got time for maybe one more question.
It's determined.
Yes. We'll go for another.
You're so mean.
Yeah.
Little hand.
I know. There's just so many wonderful people in the audience to take questions from. To be equitable, I am going to go for the sixth form side again. So go for it.
What advice you give them clients for
Sorry, I didn't quite hear the end of that.
What advice would you give?
when applying for law? This will be applying,
Applying to university for law?
yeah, or like apprenticeships or like.
All right. Everybody tends to use skills-based analysis these days. So even if I'm applying for a judicial position or a higher judicial position, they tend to use skill sets such as I say, intellectual aptitude, communication skills, analytical thinking, commitment. That's another one that we're looking at. And what we are inviting you to do, or what anybody is inviting you to do these days, is not just to say what you've done, but to demonstrate those particular skills by the use of specific examples which demonstrate those skills. So if you're looking to demonstrate intellectual aptitude, you might give a specific situation, such as when preparing a particular, let's say you're asking a lawyer. When preparing a particular case, I was instructed on the Monday to produce a schedule of loss. There was 10,000 pieces of paper which I had to look through. What I did was X, Y, Z, used summaries, used what other people had summarized, looked at conclusions, made tables, and organized the information. I was able to therefore condense 10,000 pages into a 50-page schedule within 6 days. That would demonstrate your intellectual aptitude. So you're looking at what was the situation, what did you do, what was the outcome? And if you use specifics rather than generalizations, then you will demonstrate those skills. So that's the way, whether it be a law school, or the Judicial Appointments Commission, a chambers, or a solicitor's firm, that's the way they're looking to demonstrate the skills. Am I right? What do you think?
Personality. A lot about the job that we do is communication, and as you said earlier about adaptation, you've got clients from all sorts of walks of life. You've got to be able to adapt, to be able to talk to somebody who's not very clever, to somebody who's very clever, to be able to get your communication through. And you know, the best one, the solicitors, and we've got nearly 80-90% women in our firm. I think 60% of people going into law at the moment are females, but it is a lot about the personality. You know, if you turn up smartly to an interview, you're going to get it. I mean, we had one the other day, turned up with a Red Bull and a hoodie pulled up over her head and a bloody Converse baseball boots on, and you're just like, oh my God. You know, it's sometimes it is about the presentation of that person and whether you're going to be able to communicate. I mean, and we do everything on the phone. No, hardly any face-to-face with the client. You've got to get that across. If you're just sat there like, it's not going to work. So it's getting that intellect that's obviously very, very important, but it's a lot about its personality.
You know it when you see it, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
You do. And
Yeah.
there's nothing that gives us greater pleasure when we're on an interviewing panel to see somebody come through the
Engaged.
door who's engaged and engaging and just sits there and demonstrates the skills that you're looking for. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Isn't it?
The way you
It really
Converse
is.
baseball boots.
We want you to succeed. We do.
Yeah, excellent advice. And I think, you know, especially for those of you in year 12, you know, loads that you can take on board when you're starting your UCAS applications very, very soon. And year 10, loads of wonderful things for you to think about in terms of future. Take that advice with respect to the work experience. Get out there, get your names on their radar, and take advantage of what you've heard today. And on that note, we are out of time, so I'd love to give
What's his question?
our...
You're so
I
mean.
know. Look at that sad face.
Come and ask us afterwards. How
You
about
can
that?
come and ask in the interim, but can we give a wonderful G-Cell round of applause to our panellists?
Oh, I'm not clapping myself. It's all right.